What a wild week it was in the final NFL game of the season, final week to be exact, week 18, coming to a complete close here. Sorry I didn't give anybody a chance to listen to my predictions or even do an episode based on my predictions, but you're here now, so it's good. It's good to hear. This is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. Let us interrupt you right now. I am by myself. No Mike. Unfortunately, we can get him on Skype, Zoom, or whatever, but he does say hi. He does say hi. He didn't forget about you guys. I'm in New Hampshire vacationing this week. I figured we would try to do a Skype and Zoom combined, but he doesn't have he doesn't really seem to have the experience with that, or really a working, functioning laptop, really. But so I will be doing this by myself. I will try to do an episode later. Excuse me. Later on in the week, based on my NFL playoff predictions. I'm probably gonna upload one up on Friday, maybe probably later on, probably Thursday at the latest. Really, actually, you know what? Yeah, probably Thursday because I'll be leaving from New Hampshire Friday night, driving back home to Rhode Island. So I will be doing another episode on Thursday. But I will get started with the week that was, week 18. Starting off with the Saturday edition, Chiefs-Broncos, Cowboys-Eagles. Chiefs getting the win, clinching the number 2 seed, obviously. They could not get the number 1 seed, unfortunately, because Tennessee got the win over the weekend. They beat the Broncos 28-24, and after that game, Vic Fangio was fired. So he's no longer the head coach now for the Denver Broncos. So the job search is on. And I will say this about Mahomes in this game. He was great. He was good in this game. You know, there were some times where I thought, you know, he wasn't really himself in this game. He really wasn't sharp and really in the first half. Second half, I'd say he was more sharp here. Drew Lock, as usual, choked. So no surprise there. He only it was 12 for 24, 162 yards. The big key in this game was that Denver was really going to basically extend the lead here. Melvin Gordon tried to run into the end zone. He gets tackled and he gets stripped, and Nick Bolton returned it 86 yards for a touchdown, making it 28-21. Denver kicked the field goal towards the end of the game instead of going for it to tie the game with about 4.5 to go. And at that point, that was it. I mean, Kansas City got the win. Should be no surprise to anybody. It should be surprising how close the game was, though, because the last game, well, Kansas City won by 2 touchdowns. This game here was pretty damn close. There was no Patrick Surtain second in this game, which made it tougher defensively for Denver. Denver's just without a bunch of key players. I mean, that's really when it really comes down to it. And the problem is there was no Teddy Bridgewater. He was out with that concussion for the 3rd straight game. So that didn't really help matters, really, especially when you're trying to put so much pressure on Drew Lock, who really hasn't played a lot of games all season. In fact, if you think about it, really, I think he only played a grand total of like 2 or 3 games. So there you go. For the Cowboys and Eagles game, this really came down to the Cowboys just annihilating Philly. No question about that. Dak Prescott, 21 for 27, 285 yards, 5 touchdowns. Minshew only had 186 for 19 for 33 shooting, 2 touchdowns and a pick. This really came down to, just Dak Prescott being strong. 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. They managed to do it without Michael Gallup since he's out for the rest of the season because he tore his ACL last weekend against the Cardinals. This was a strong statement win for Dallas. I mean, they're now the number 3 seed now. They're going to be facing San Francisco in the playoffs. We'll get more in the playoff seeding in just a moment. But Dallas looked convincing. They look like a dangerous team heading into the playoffs. I mean, I wouldn't say it's San Francisco. I just, I don't trust Jimmy G in the playoffs on the road. If he was at home, I'd say if he had home field advantage throughout, then maybe. But I just think without clinching that division title, it's going to be a lot tougher road for San Fran because you got Dallas, possibly Green Bay if they beat Dallas, and then Tampa Bay if they beat Green Bay. And I just don't see them beating 2 of those teams. I don't. I'm not really a strong believer in that. And Philadelphia, as a result of this, will be a 7th seed because by default they, lost early in the year to San Francisco. They rested Jalen Hurts. They chose to do that. Devonte Smith got his rookie-breaking record. He's got 916 receiving yards this season for Philadelphia and a big finish for him. really, he didn't do much in that game because he was benched for that game as well. I mean, he was basically benched for the rest of the half. Devonte Smith had 3 catches for 41 yards. Watkins had 5 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown. Gameo had 78 yards rushing on 12 carries for a touchdown. This game all the way around just was really about resting of players, basically. And this is the thing with the extra week here, really, is you're not allowing a lot of perfection out of these games. These are games right now. These are meaningless weeks now where you rest your opponents now at this point. It's like an extra bye week, basically, for most of these players. Yeah, they play a little bit, but it's like it's easy. It's easy peasy. Although Dak did play for the entire game, really, in that one against Philly. Packers-Lions. Lions got the win 37-30 over Green Bay. Rodgers sat out the second half. Had a great first half. Had 2 touchdowns, 14 for 18, 138 yards. Many people are making the argument it's Rodgers versus Brady in the MVP conversation. I say it's Brady because he just has the passing title this year. He's got 5,312 yards, which I'll get more into his performance over the Panthers. But this game here was really about Detroit trying to come back, make something happen out of nothing. Jared Goff, 21 for 30, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns. You could argue this game was really about Detroit having a lead by the end of the half here, really, and then just putting the game away towards the third. They thought they put the game away towards the third, but Green Bay started to come back. Josiah DeGuara got a 62-yard pass from Jordan Love, then got the 2-point conversion. They were down by 5. Detroit reclaimed the lead and kicked the field goal to end the game, made it 37-30. I mean, basically, if you really had to think about in this game what happened in this game, it was simple. I mean, Rodgers had a great first half. Jordan Love comes in. He fills in, does his part to maintain the best record in football, basically, at 13 wins. That's a story. Devontae Adams in this game had 6 catches for 55 yards. Great first half for him. Didn't really do much in the second half, really, for Green Bay. And in this game, the Patriots and Dolphins, I know this is a 4:25 game, but I got to get into this whole thing. What a disaster of a game for Mac Jones. I wouldn't say the worst game of the year, but what a bad time to put up a performance like that, just limping into the playoffs, as they're now a 6th seed now, going into the playoffs. It just, again, chance to win their division. You had a chance to not get swept by Miami. And here they are. I mean, they're down 14-0. Wild gets a 7-yard pass from Tua. Xavier Howard gets a pick 6. 30-yard field goal. Bolden gets a 15-yard run for a touchdown. Later on, there were a field goal there. Duke Johnson rushes in for 1 yard. Jason Sanders gets a 50-yard field goal, makes it 27-10. It was after a strip fumble by Mac Jones, by the way. This was when Andrews was out in the play. Ted Karras was under center for that one. Bolden got an 18-yard touchdown pass. Harris ran it in for 1. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough because New England had a last chance. They were deep in their own territory. They were just basically playing monkey in the middle, keep the Dolphins away from the ball, keep away here, just throwing laterals at that point. Myers threw a costly one because Sam Govin recovered it in the end zone and score ended up being 33-24. This Patriot team defensively has struggled. Mac Jones has struggled offensively as a quarterback for this team. I would say here the stupidity that was this whole thing. And I look at this Patriot team and I say to myself, you had a chance to win your division. You had a chance to make a statement in Miami. Because let's be honest, even if the Bills would have won this game, realistically, if you would have gotten that win in Miami, that would have gotten you at least another conference win, maybe. At least a more competitive game than what the Jets and Bills got in their ones. And just in their last few games, I mean, think about this for a minute. The Colts, who just yesterday lost to Jacksonville 26-11, they're out of the playoffs, by the way, if anyone's wondering. I'm not going to do a lot of coverage in that game because the Colts just never showed up. That's really what it comes down to it. So that game was unwatchable. I figured Jacksonville was going to pick up the upset win. By the way, I had that pick. But back to this game for a minute. You lost to that Colt team, who's now out of the playoffs. You had a chance to, even if you got the loss here, secure the 5th seed at some point here and make yourself the best team in the AFC. There was no high tower in this game, I heard. There was really not much of anybody defensively, big name-wise, in this game. Phillips was on one leg. He was all banged up and hurt. Van Noy didn't do much. Collins didn't. I mean, Van Noy had some couple of plays in there. I shouldn't say he didn't do much. He had a sack and a tackle for a loss, and he had really 6 tackles in total, grouping-wise, 3 by himself. But Judon didn't do much in this game. Judon, I will say honestly, hasn't done much in weeks. And this guy has been really just been a non-factor for the Patriots over the last several weeks, really, when it comes defensively. And it's at a bad time where now you've lost 3 out of your last 4 games, and really in non-competitive form. I mean, I know New England was competitive towards the end there. They were deep in their own territory, but what a bad ending to that game, and what a bad way just to crap out here as you get swept by the Dolphins, who finished 9-8. By the way, they just fired their head coach yesterday. I'm not sure why they did that. I'm not sure what the cause of that was going to be. In this case here, like, you fire your head coach after you swept the Patriots, you swept the Jets, and you in this game here just, and it was just pathetic, just how they played in the end. New England, those 3 of the last 4 games. The game against the Buffalo Bills, I didn't think overall that game was really that competitive. I wasn't convinced that Mac Jones was good enough in that primetime slot. And then you get the game in Indianapolis where he did great. I don't even blame him for that loss, really. I mean, I blame the special teams in that one, who they should fire at the end of the year, in my opinion. The special teams coach, he's been a complete disaster for this team. They've allowed so many punt blocks right now. It's unbelievable how bad they've been. Just certain situations. But again, I mean, after that performance, and what really just felt like they just couldn't turn the switch on in this game, New England. And then really for Miami to put this game in perspective, they're 9-8. They should have never fired their coach in the first place. Now Flores, who's going to go somewhere else and coach for a different team. I just think that that's just not the way to go. This is a dumb team. A dumb team that they had a chance to, like, really basically, they knew Tua's not the starter. Tua sucked in this game. He didn't do much in this game. He didn't really wow a lot of people. He wasn't that great. 15 for 22 for 109 yards and a touchdown. Does that sound like a starting quarterback in this league that could do something with? No. Lamar Jackson has had a better season than this, and he didn't even play the final game of the year. So there you go. Tua's not the starter here. But if you bring in Deshaun Watson, if you would have just brought him in, this team would have had a better year. They would be a playoff team right now. So this is not Flores' fault. This is the GM there, who are a bunch of morons who don't care about their franchise, it seems like, because they're going to get rid of – they're probably the best coach they've had since Sperano. You know? I mean, this is a stupid franchise that will just accept less. And it's not because of money. It's because they just in their mind, they act like they can't, they're going to do what's right for them. And I don't think it's a money issue. I just think they just play with fear. They just don't want to be disappointed when they don't get what they want here. And that's not the right frame of mind of thinking. You know, this team just went out this year. They swept the Patriots. When was the last time the Dolphins swept the Patriots? Think about that. It's been a while since that's happened. I can't even recall the last time that happened. I'm pretty sure it was Bill's first year as a head coach when they went 5-11, and he was almost on the verge of being fired from that. I think after that one season, a lot of people were saying that he could be fired, but he wasn't. Turns out he's one of the greatest coaches of all time right now, and he's still doing it to this day. And now he'll be doing it next weekend in Buffalo in prime time, where, by the way, the weather will be at exactly 0 degrees. No snow, light wind, but really cold night in Buffalo. And I don't know if that's good for Mac Jones. I don't know if that's good for Buffalo, because either way, I think both teams stink in cold weather games now at this point. It seems like the luster is gone now, where you lost Tom Brady. You don't have a quarterback that likes cold weather. And you got Buffalo, who just hates the cold weather entirely, but loves their stadium, just hates the cold weather because they just suck in cold weather games. So it's not really a win-win for both teams, really. So that's that. Browns beat the Bengals 21-16. Nothing really to hear about this game, really, honestly. Nobody cares. There was no Baker Mayfield. There was no Joe Burrow. There was no big classic battle for Ohio because Cleveland was already eliminated from the playoffs. The Bengals want to rest Joe Burrow because he kind of got hurt in the game against Kansas City. He's fine, though, so he should be able to play next weekend. Vikings beat the Bears 31-17. Matt Nagy was fired. Really, I'm going to give you the list of coaching here that was fired in this game. It was Mike Zimmer, Nagy, Vangio, and Flores were the four people that got fired. So much for a Black Monday or / Black Sunday, really, when it comes to firing these head coaches. Not really a lot of big names, not really a lot of shockers, really, because Zimmer was going to be already gone regardless if the Vikings made the playoffs or not. And the same thing goes for Nagy and I just think that Nagy's in the wrong here. I think Nagy and Flores got robbed, basically, in their jobs as head coaches. I'm convinced that Nagy was never wanted in Chicago. I'm convinced of that. He's not the reason why Chicago struggled all year long. He really isn't. Anyway, I got that booming in there. I didn't even realize that was in the background. Anyway, but just again, like to recap their season for Nagy, I just think that this guy got snowed out of the job. I mean, he's not the reason this team was bad in general. It was the GM, which they also fired the GM, by the way, for both Minnesota and Chicago after their games. Ryan Pace and Rick Spielman, I believe, both the GMs for Bears and Vikings are gone. And good riddance. That's all I got to say. Good riddance to a team that just to a GM that really never really helped out their coaches, and I think had it out for them. And I'm pretty sure they did. I mean, you're drafting a franchise quarterback if you're the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields, because of how bad your offensive line is. He's hurt. He couldn't play the last 2 or 3 games. So you had a mixture of Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, and I could have preferred Nick Foles in this game. I don't know why they put Dalton in this game. 33 for 48, 325 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Cousins was in there, 14 for 22, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Justin Jefferson was the star of this game. Had 5 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. Mooney had 12 catches for 126 for Chicago, no touchdowns in this game. Not really much of a surprise to anybody, really. Chicago was at 14-0, though. And after that, they were outscored, I believe, by a grand total of, was it 31-3, I think it was at that point. So there you go. And to top it all off, Dalton threw his second pick in the game, pick 6. Patrick Peterson, 66 yards, seals the deal with the Vikings. Vikings finished the year 8-9, while Chicago drops to 6-11. And I believe, and if I'm mistaken by this, I'm sorry, but I think this is Matt Nagy's first losing season on the team as a head coach. So I'm just trying to figure out why he got fired here in this one. Why his job was in the line. They gave Justin Fields a chance. I think Nagy knew of how bad the GM position was bad, and I'm convinced that Pace got him fired, and the ownership just said, "Screw you! You're part of this problem," which I guess they finally realized, and they fired him too. But I don't think Nagy should have been fired. Zimmer, look, he did what he could in Minnesota. They didn't really want him in Minnesota. It comes down to it, like, whatever. It's not a big deal. It's a non-story really for Mike Zimmer to get. It really is. It shocking to anybody at all that Mike Zimmer got fired? A lot of people predicted that to start the season out anyway. So nobody predicted the Vikings to make the playoffs anyway. I mean, I kind of did, because I kind of figured they'd be a playoff team, but I was wrong. Instead, they're below 500. Like I said before, Colts beat the Jaguars 26-11. Trevor Lawrence had his best game of the year, in my opinion. Despite not throwing for a lot of yards in this game, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He did start the game like 12 for 12. I mean, if that's not, and especially against that tough Indy defense, that's not easy to do. But this game all the way around was a complete dumpster fire for the Colts. Carson Wentz shit the bed. He was 17 for 29, 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Taylor did nothing in this game. Had 15 carries for 77 yards. You talk about a team that underperformed their last 2 games against the Raiders and the Jaguars here. Jacksonville especially. I mean, you're losing to a team that just doesn't care, right? They don't care about fixing any problems down there in Jacksonville. They don't. But in this game, they kind of did care here. They showed more they cared in this game. Washington and New York, you know what? I don't know how Joe Judge still has a job. I really don't get it. Team goes 4-13 this year. They haven't won a game in a month, probably even longer. The closest game they ever won was against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City on Monday Night Football. That's the closest game they've had to winning all year. The rest of these games, that just it scratches your head, really. But Fromm was in this game. Georgia Bulldog probably should be happy about what happened last night. We'll get into that in a little bit. 1 touchdown for him, 2 picks, 15 for 31, 103 yards. Heineke didn't do any better. He's 9 for 18 in this game, which it really wasn't even about that in this game. It was really about the rushing in this game. Gibson, 21 carries for 146 yards and a touchdown. Washington was up by as much as 12-0 in this game. It was really just a pick 6 that really sealed the deal. Bobby McCain got one in the third. Antonio gets an 18-yard run, slide kicks a field goal. Washington wins. I mean, let's be honest here for me. It was a wild week. Wild week because basically of how many shockers happened here. Like Pittsburgh beating the Ravens in overtime, 16-13. Big Ben getting the playoff berth. He'll be playing at Kansas City. Then we'll get into the seedings in a little bit more and who's who here. But Big Ben had two clinching drives, one on third down, one on fourth down in overtime to seal the deal there, kick the game-winning field goal. Big Ben here, 30 for 44, 244 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Huntley was 141 passing yards for 16 for 31, throwing 2 picks. This game all the way around, I mean, let's be honest here for a minute. Barely any effort by Pittsburgh here. They got lucky towards the end there. I thought Chase Clay pulled the deal there, but Tucker forced overtime. Then Boswell kicked a 36-yard field goal. And all I can say about this game is that T.J. Watt got tied the record. He tied Michael Strahan's sack record with 22.5 sacks this season. He's a sack leader for the Steelers as they seal the deal. Titans beat the Texans 28-25. Saints beat the Falcons 30-20. Bills beat the Jets 27-10. Non-competitive. This was probably the game of the day right here between the 49ers and the Rams. As the 49ers seal the deal. Garoppolo had his best game. 316 yards, touchdown, 2 picks. Matthew Stafford had 238 yards throwing, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Cooper Kupp had 7 catches for 118 yards. He got the receiving title this year for the Rams. So congrats to him. Excuse me. The Rams were up 17-0 at one point. The 49ers came back in the second half. Samuel was the story of this one, coming back with the team. And really Jimmy G was the story of this one. And late in the fourth quarter, coming back right now, and a field goal here, and then the late interception in the end to cap off the win, giving the 49ers a 60 playoff berth, advance to the playoffs. If they would have lost this game, they would have, I believe, been eliminated from the playoffs because I don't think they've had anything clinched yet by that point. The Saints were eliminated based on the fact that the 49ers won. The Rams needed the Rams needed to win in order for the Saints to get in. The Saints would have been a 6-8, they would have leapfrogged over the Eagles. That's what would have happened in this game. Although I don't believe, I believe Philadelphia lost. Did Philadelphia lose to the Saints? I can't remember for the life of me. The Saints played the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to look back in this in just a quick second here to see whether or not Philadelphia played them or not. And they did, and they lost. So that's why I think Philadelphia would have lost, but although Philadelphia the tiebreakers, so that New Orleans was already out of it either way. Seahawks beat the Cardinals 38-30. Russell Wilson was great in this game. 238 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Kyler Murray had 1 touchdown, 240 yards. Wasn't enough, though, for Seahawks to get the road win. And look, it was a nice way for Russell Wilson to go out because, nobody knows if he's going to stay in Seattle. Nobody knows if he's going to stay at all in the part of the NFC West. He's going to go to the AFC at this point. I mean, there's a lot of choices he can go to. I say New Orleans is an easy choice for me because they need the quarterback help. They need wide receivers down there as well. The Saints could use the help. Sean Payton's a great coach down there. Pete Carroll's on his way out when it comes to coaching, so I just think he's done in Seattle, I think. Tampa Bay versus Carolina. Tampa Bay, not much to say about this really, other than breaking multiple records in this game for Brady. As once again, the Buccaneers now are the number 2 seed now in the NFC. Brady was 29 for 37, 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Scotty Miller had 2 carries of 43 yards and a touchdown. I think he had a 33-yard run towards the end of this game, really. But really, the touchdown passes were thrown to Le'Veon Bell. One was thrown to Mike Evans, and another was thrown to Mike Evans. 2 of them in the game. Brady got Gronk his bonus. He needed 7 catches and over 100 yards to get it. He had 7 catches for 137 yards. No touchdowns for him, though, unfortunately. The Panthers had 2 touchdowns, 1 pick from Sam Darnold. He threw for 219 yards in this game, 29 for 42. DJ Moore had 7 catches for 87 yards for the Panthers in this game. This game all the way around was really about the Bucs here just sending a message. And at the end of the day, even without Chris Godwin, they got Brashad Perriman now, who is taking over the role for Godwin. Evans is your number 1 guy as far as I'm concerned. I think number 1 when it comes to targets, I think. He's your number 1 guy. I think Gronk is in there as well, but he's kind of used for blocking. If you need him to make a big play or 2, he's a big play guy. I don't consider Gronk as a number 1 target. I know it sounds crazy to say because Gronk and Brady have been doing this for decades. or really for 1 decade, really. But it seems like here Evans is become the number 1 guy. Brown could be in number 3 if he didn't have his little episode and get himself cut from the team this past week. But at the end of the day, Antonio Brown is a cancer to himself. He's a cancer to the league, and I'm glad nobody picked him up during this playoff run. I hope nobody does. I hope Brown gets what he gets. He sits there and watches the games happen, because he went on that Full Send podcast this week, and that actually kind of infuriated me, because I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy let you in your home, and you basically like owned him, called him out for no reason. It's not his fault that you got a fake COVID card. It's not his fault that you had a Tampa tantrum. He didn't force you to go back in the game out there. It was all Bruce Arians and the medical staff who wanted to check you. You refused that bull crap. And you want money back from Alex Guerrero. And he left $1 million on the table. He would have had $1 million paid if he would have just stayed in the game against the Jets and would have played in this one against the Panthers. But this team is stupid. This team is stupid for letting this guy be on this team in the first place. This is what you get. But here now they did the smart thing by cutting this guy and not making him a distraction throughout the entire playoff run. That's great. Okay, the Buccaneers got the win 41-17. The Chargers-Raiders game, I will say this. I should have put this in my Facebook notifications. By the way, for those wondering if I'm going to post the Facebook stuff, well, unfortunately, I'm not going to have any time this week to post the Bucs or Patriots game. So you got my review on that one. You just listened to it, so there's no reason for me to post it now again. But anyway, Chargers-Raiders was the game of the year as far as the drama heading into it. Because if both teams would have ended in a tie, which I would have loved, then the Steelers would have been knocked out of the playoffs. The Chargers and Raiders would get in by default. The Raiders, I believe, would have been a number 7 seed facing Kansas City. And the Chargers would have been a 6 seed facing, I believe they would have been facing Buffalo in this case. But Chargers are out of the playoffs because they lost in overtime. And it was a drama-filled game. The Raiders led as much as 15 points here. The Chargers converted on 6 fourth down conversions, most in a long time in an NFL game. I can't think of the last time that's ever happened here, really. But it was 29-14. Joshua Palmer, the rookie out of Tennessee, got a touchdown reception and a 2-point conversion from Austin Eckler. Then Mike Williams, as time expired, got the touchdown, game-tying touchdown to tie the game at 29 apiece. Raiders get a field goal, and Hopkins get a field goal. Then the costly timeout from Brandon Staley here. To me, I just thought that was bizarre. I think you let the clock tick out, you risk the tie. They had no time. They didn't even want to stop the clock, the Raiders. They were okay with getting the tie. But Brandon Staley, they said, no, we need a timeout. We need which I think killed their momentum, the Chargers, because they were already exhausted as it was from the drama-filled overtime in the period. And most of that fourth quarter trying to get his team back in the game. And their defense trying to stop the Raiders here. But in the end, it was a game-winning 47-yard field goal, but from Daniel Carlson. Raiders going to win 35-32 in overtime. And this might have been the game of the year, in my opinion. I think this was actually at the last night. This topped the Thanksgiving game, which I said was between the Raiders and the Cowboys. And based on the drama in that game, the Raiders have got 2 games this year that's worth game of the year. They were both in overtime, both in prime time, both on a special occasion, really. Really a Thanksgiving spectacular for one. On Thanksgiving Day against the Cowboys in Dallas. And in that home, and a last chance to get into the playoffs, and where all hope was lost for the Raider fans, really, after they got killed by Kansas City in Kansas City. They get back here, and they not only clinch a playoff berth, they knock their division rival out of the playoffs. They jump like 4 seeds, really, to be the 5th seed now at this point, which will lead into the playoff scenario, which I have right in front of me here, based on some reports. This is based on the NFL playoff standings as it goes as of today, which I'm trying to get right in front of me. But here it is. This is how it goes. So this is on Super Wild Card weekends. This is on Saturday. So you have the Raiders at the Bengals. The Raiders are the 5th seed now, playing at Cincinnati. The Patriots are the 6th seed, playing the Buffalo Bills. That's on Saturday night, 8:15. That's for the AFC side. The Steelers will be playing the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. That's a Sunday night game at 8:15. That's how the AFC playoff picture goes right now as far as the playoff seedings go. Tennessee is your number 1 seed who has a bye. Kansas City is number 2. Buffalo's number 3. And Cincinnati ranks out at number 4. Buffalo is 11-6. And the Titans and Chiefs are both 12-5. The NFC side. Sunday, 1 o'clock, Tampa Bay plays at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are the 7th seed. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2nd seed. Dallas and San Francisco playing at 4:30 on Sunday on CBS. The CBS coverage will have, I guess, Nance and Romo calling this one, which is interesting. And as far as the Monday night edition goes for Super Wildcard, the first Monday night playoff game, that will be on ESPN. It will be Arizona playing at the Los Angeles Rams. Arizona is the 5th seed. The Rams are the 4th seed. So I will get my picks on that later on in the week. As far as this playoff seeding goes, let me just say this for a second. The tie would have been the most controversial tie. It would be the most talked about thing going today with the Raiders and Chargers. Why Brandon Staley called the timeout that he called, I have no idea. How this guy's going to keep a job over Brian Flores, I have no idea. But this is an example of how crapped out the Chargers are in this one. They shot themselves in the foot towards the end of the season. The big loss to Kansas City, that was worrisome. And then going in this game, I thought they were waving a white flag late in the second half here, the Chargers. But, they had their heart. There were two things that actually ticked me off in this game. The 4th and 1 where they went for it at their own 18-yard line and they couldn't convert. That was stupid. And I watched that play back and I said to myself, Brandon Staley has got to be the ballsiest, dumbest coach I've ever seen in my life. I think that the Chargers in this game, I'm pretty sure, were 6 for 6 in the 4th with that drive that they had in the game. They couldn't convert on a 3rd down. But overall in the game, I'm pretty sure they went for it 2 or 3 times in this game, I believe. And they were 6 and 9 overall in the game. Listen, the Chargers are the 2nd fastest offense in the league. I get it. But you're playing too fast. Your defense is getting tired. Your offense is getting tired. Stop doing what you're doing. You're hurting this kid. You hurt Herbert's chances into shining in the playoffs. Now, would he have done great against the Chiefs in that game? We'll never know. But Brandon Staley has got to be the stupidest head coach alive today. He is dumb. The fact that Nagy, Flores, Zimmer, and Van Gaal lost their jobs, but this idiot's going to be still around, which we'll see this next year too. This will be the exact same way it will go out. Only it'll be Denver that will probably be in the playoff conversation because who knows if Aaron Rodgers will be a Las Vegas Raider next year or Derek Carr's going to stay in Las Vegas. Yeah, but the same scenario here. They'll play in Denver next year. Final week of the year. I can see this coming from a mile away now. And the exact same thing happens and the exact same record happens next season. Because Brandon Staley is trying to be Mr. Macho here when he should be thinking time management and common sense and trusting in your defense. You are a former defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. I don't know how you can't trust in your own defense. That's the number one thing that you should do. And if you're coming in as a head coach, especially if you're a former defensive coordinator at probably one of the best defenses last year in the entire league in the Rams. You had Aaron Donald at your disposal, for Christ's sakes. Leonard Floyd, Kenny Young. I can name the listing here. Jalen Ramsey. You are the coordinator for this team. You were the play calling for that defense last season. Just this past last season for the Rams. And now here you're a head coach of this team. And really, you cost yourself an entire playoff run. You did. You might as well just said, no, I'm done. And if this guy keeps his job within the next 2 weeks, let me put it this way. If Staley's the reason that this kid is not in the playoffs in the next 2 or 3 seasons, then this guy should be fired. He should be fired. If we get the same results the next 2 seasons where they'll go 9-8 and they miss the playoffs, then Brandon Staley's got to go. I don't even know how he didn't get fired here. Overtime game like that and you call a timeout, basically setting the Raiders up for that 48-yard field goal. It's just mind-bogglingly stupid. So that's your NFL playoff topic. We're gonna get into some sad news on the day that is the sad weekend of the news right now. Bob Saget passing away as of Monday, January 10th, died at age 65. The former television host Danny Tanner for Full House, part of the Netflix sequel, The Fuller House. He was also the narrator for How I Met Your Mother. He was basically narrating Ted Mosby's life. Really just not much to say here. He was 65 years old. He was found unresponsive in a hotel room in the Ritz Carlton here in Orlando, Grand Lakes. Cause was unknown in the beginning. They were saying he was dying of a immune compromised disease. It was not COVID related because he seemed happy. I guess it was an unknown disease that Saget now had at the time. I guess he was but there was a possibility of COVID being the issue. It was not a COVID disease, but it was a disease that compromised the immune system that made him pass away. That was one, according to some reports. There's some reports saying right now that it's still unknown of how he passed away. Actually, he passed away on January 9th. He didn't pass away January 10th, so I was wrong on the date. But he passed away as of they note now the medical examiner officer will make the final call on the cause of death. But yeah, this was the first report by TMZ. He was found unresponsive in his hotel room at 4 p.m. He was just talking to his daughter and his wife not really too long ago, really getting excited for his comedy run. He was supposed to have appearances for stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, California, and then as well as other cities, really. He had tours planned and everything else. And unfortunately, he passed away. Very sad to hear about John Stamos. And really, I mean, you're losing one of the greats here. You lost Betty White not too long ago. You lost John Madden. And now you lose Bob Saget. Bob Saget, way too young to go out. And it just very sad news for Bob Saget. Once again, he was at the concert hall in Jacksonville. That was he tweeted this, and I guess this was Saturday night, I believe, right before he passed away. So, I mean, it's pretty scary of how he passed away. Really, some people are saying it's with COVID. Some people are saying it's just how he passed away. Really, just all of a sudden, really, just out of the blue. I mean, you can go. I mean, it could happen to anybody, really. And you could. It's always good to have your checkups, really, and to see if you're in good health, really. Otherwise, you're just, one day you could just, plop dead, end up dead, right in your hotel room, and not even, and nobody would even know. So this is a new report right now coming out right now, and I'm just trying to find here. There was no sign of foul play. There's no evidence supporting that now at this point. And they're saying now the autopsy could come up to 10 to 12 weeks right now. But there is a possibility where he had a disease that he may not know about. They're saying now that's a possibility. But that was a very, really heart-wrenching for anybody who's a Full House fan. And I watched that show as a young kid, but I was never really a true fan of that show. I did watch it just based on the chemistry between Saget, Stamos, and the guy who played Joey. I can't think of the name right now, but you get what I'm saying. The chemistry was there. And it just, at the end of the day, it was just a very sad thing to hear, He had his, whole tour planned out. It was the happiest part of his life, getting ready to be a stand-up comedian again. He was it felt like he was being a kid again, he said. And, it just really just next thing you know, he's end up in a report saying that he was found dead in his hotel room. There's so many questions, so many unknowns, really, based on what happened. Pretty sad day for Bob Saget. Pretty sad week for Bob Saget for the last couple of days, really. Just really, again, condolences to the family. But just, wow. That's all I got to say. It's just wow. Anyway, we got some NBA news to get into. Celtics getting a huge win last night. and if you read my comment line, I said lucky because I think it was a lucky win here. They didn't play overall that great last night against the Pacers. I thought it was pathetic. If you had to base it off on what happened here last night, they barely survived the Indiana Pacers team in overtime. It really does make you think that this Celtic team is just so bad. Oh no, Jaylen Brown not a good night shooting. Jason Tatum not a good night shooting. 0 for 7 for 3 for Jason Tatum here last night. And this is the first game where Brown and Tatum both scored over 25 points. Well, I guess in this case, over 20 points for Tatum because he got 24. Brown and Tatum combined for 86 minutes on the court during the overtime period. Just all the way around, it was not a good night for shooting for Tatum, not a good night shooting for Brown. They managed to get the points they needed to get here. They were up. They were basically trailed for not really for most of the game, really, but enough to where it's like it was competitive. They almost lost in the fourth quarter, really. If it wasn't for that overtime finish at the end, where you got basically, reliant Jaylen Brown in the end, just hitting a dagger here, really, in the end of the game. Just and really Tatum too, hitting the 2 clutch free throws based on those 2 things, though. But Brown especially. Brown, who might as well be the leader of this team. It's not Tatum. But if it really wasn't for Brown and towards the end of this game here, really, they would have blown this game. They would have blown this game to a crappy Pacer team. And, I can't get into the Celtics anymore. I can't get into watching them. They're not an exciting team. They're not a team that I want to see in the playoffs, especially when you have Ime Udoka, who one week is a soft, passionate coach, and he's trying to be, like Brad Stevens. And then the next week he calls everybody out, and one week it's Al Horford, who acts like, okay, he's this, he's that. Basically trying to, convince people about how much of a leader Tatum and Brown are. And then it's like the crap out, like, it's just, they're contradicting one another. Brown, who's cursing now at the end of games. I mean, it just trying to get him a new attitude. Like he's trying to become like less PG and more edgy. I just can't understand this team. I really can't. And you know something? I hope we miss the playoffs, and I hope we get rid of Tatum and Brown and Smart. Marcus Smart too, because what the hell was he doing the last few nights? He's not doing much of anything. In fact, last night he was 4 for 11, 2 for 4 shooting. How many had 11 points in this game? Really? That's your effort? You're supposed to be the leader of this team, and you're supposed to be making everybody respect you, and you put out games like this? You're pathetic. And he only had 23 minutes in the game. That's even worse. If you want to be a leader, you got to be out there for over 50 minutes. That's my opinion. We haven't seen that yet from Marcus Smart, and we're never going to see that from Marcus Smart. We're only going to see that at clutch games and clutch situations against clutch opponents, not against trash opponents, which is kind of disappointing, if you ask me. For anybody who wants to be a Marcus Smart fan or a Marcus Smart believer, it's not happening. That's your reality. The Celtics right now are a useless team that's gonna give you a little bit of excitement for Tatum and Brown to get in points for your fantasy leagues. But that's it. That's it. That's all they are. They're fantasy players. Not much else to say at all. They're pathetic. So one pathetic Boston team, to another, although the Bruins have been really surprising for the last couple of days here, really. As a matter of fact, they beat the Capitals yesterday in Washington 7-3. Pasternak had 2 goals yesterday. Marchand had 2 goals. Korzecki had 1 goal yesterday, had 4 assists in the game. They were down 2-1. They were down 2-0 in this game. And that's where Pasternak and Marchand and Korzecki began the run. Smith had a goal in there as well. Pasternak had a goal. Hula had a goal. And Marchand had a goal towards late in the third period. Or midway in the third period to seal the deal. So Bruins get the win. They not only beat the Capitals in Washington, right? But they managed to get 2 great wins after a deflating loss at home against the Wild back last Thursday. They last Saturday beat the Lightning 5-2 in Tampa, by the way. Not an easy place to play at. Pasternak had 2 goals. Marchand had 2 goals in that one. I mean, this game all the way around, if you had to think about the difference making in this game for the last couple of weeks here for the Bruins, it's Marchand and Pasternak who've really been your front runs from the left wing to the right wing. Those have been the guys that have given you answers here, really. Just sending a message to Tampa Bay, sending a message to Washington. But I'm telling you, it's, and this is after they make the announcement about Tuukka, who did sign a 10-day contract with the Providence Bruins, part of the practice squad kind of thing. That those didn't last long. In fact, now he might be clear to come back to play for the Bruins now. There's been rumors about that. But I just think to myself, you're going to get Tuukka Rask, who's going to come back, up his stats, and then say, do I really want to play in this game right now? Not really. I'm not really motivated. And the Bruins crap the bread during the playoffs. This is what they do. And this is why I would not bring back Tuca during this playoff run. I wouldn't. Try it out with Swayman. Try out with Uri, whatever his name is. Try out with those guys. Because Swayman's been a pretty good answer for the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Washington Capitals on the road. I mean, you're outscoring opponents 12-3. I mean, do we really need Tuukka Rask to come back soon? I don't really want him to come back. If you want my honest opinion, I think Rask's contract should be cut up. They shouldn't even have a contract conversation. This should be the end of Tuukka Rask, and Tuukka should just retire. The guy's not motivated. He didn't do great, as a Providence, practice squad guy. He just doesn't care. He's basically simping the Bruins for money. That's all this is. If for anybody Boston Bruins fan out there that doesn't think so, then look back in the last 2 playoff seasons. Look back on those and how he did absolutely nothing for those 2 playoff games. As a matter of fact, cost the Bruins that series against the Lightning. You could have argued there if they would have won that series, they could have won the whole Stanley Cup in 2020. And then if you think about the 2021 run, same thing. They lose to the Lightning in the end. It just, here in this case here, you get what you get now at this point. 2 clutch wins against the Lightning and the Capitals right now. 2 hot teams right now in the hockey world right now. Just at the perfect time. And they're playing their Montreal rival tomorrow on TNT. They have the Flyers this week on Thursday. Then Saturday they play home against the Nashville Predators. I'm expecting at least 3 good wins here for these next 3 games at home. You're at home here. Then you're home against the Hurricanes the next week. Then you're at home against the Capitals. This is a big week, a big important next, week or so for the Bruins. They need to make an established statement now that they can do this without Tuukka. Like, we don't need him. And they should. They should say that. They should feel that way. But Bruce Cassidy is this guy who's just so reluctant. Like, I don't know if they're good golf buddies, if they didn't care about the Stanley Cup during that playoff run, if Bruce Cassidy figured, who cares? It's not even in front of our Boston crowd, and the pandemic ruined everything, and it happened again during it just, nobody cared, right? Nobody cared in Boston. They couldn't even believe the Celtics were in the playoffs. That's how lost they were during the pandemic last year in 2021. So you get my point. Tuukka Rask is not needed for this team. They're just fine without him. They had huge good wins against the Capitals and the Lightning here after really just feeling deflated after that game against the Wild here, really. Just based if you watch that game, it was the referees taking over that game as well, which, you could argue that's why the Bruins lost, but they could have overcame that. They were at home. So there's no excuse for this. But anyway, Bruins are at home now for the next couple of next few really 4 or 5 games, really 6 games, really. If you think about it, they have a nice little homestand going on until the 27th or 25th, I should say. Excuse me. But anyway, so they have that. You have that under your belt. So, in my opinion, right now, does the Bruins have a shot right now without Rask to go deep in the Stanley Cup? It's hard to say because I'm not sure if Swayman's ready for that yet, but I want to see it. I want to see how he does in the long run here, but does he have a chance to win the Stanley Cup? I don't believe that they can. I don't think Swayman's that elite yet or that clutch yet as a goalie to make that argument. It's too soon, especially now if they're reluctantly trying to go back to Rask, and I think that's a mistake. Anyway, so there was some stuff I want to get into the dating world. I didn't get a chance to really even get into this, really. Online dating. I know this is not really a topic I normally get into here, really, because I think online dating is such a sham. But Bumble's got a trend going on right now where the 6 dating trends in 2022 that will, for anyone who's sick of being single right now at this point. So this was reported. I'm already seeing someone, my therapist, which is a good one. No thanks, I'm good with Sprite. It's basically tips right now in order to have a good dating, good chance in dating somebody right now without using alcohol, without really just at this point, just trying to promote, some positives in 2022. Don't use drinking. Don't, drop everything now and focus on your partner here, basically. Not using social media at this point, not, being obsessed with social media and not letting Instagram, influence your life, and just go with the flow, honestly. Look for people right now who are looking for, long-term relationships. And that's basically what the goal is right now from these online sites. If they're not long-term material, you move on. That's basically what this is right now for what Bumble's saying right now. Because I'm not going to get through every single article here. This is according to Stylecaster right now. That was written by Bella Gerard. But the main one here is the drinking. And this is for anybody who's a heavy drinker out there. It's not a good turn on. Okay, being plastered drunk, going to bars, getting yourself plastered drunk out there. You're asking for trouble. You're asking for one night stands that you're never going to really remember. And you're going to get a girl who's basically just going to go through your wallet later on as you're passed out, take your money and run. Take your wallet, take your wallet and run, basically. I mean, do you really want that? Do you really want that trouble? At this point, I'd say no to that. Because to me, that's just pathetic. That's just asking for trouble in this case. And it really gets to me that people, drink, are heavy drinkers like they are. They're just basically, compromising their liver the more they drink, and which leads to early deaths and bad immune systems. People die in their 60s. Their liver's compromised of how much drinking they've done. Their lungs are compromised for how much drinking they've done. It's bad, and especially if you're at a bar constantly getting drinks every night at the bar with a lady friend. It's either a good turn on, they drink with you and you connect that way, great. But is it really a good trend? No, it's not a good trend. It's a horrible trend, if you ask me. If there, people would say that, seeking out help if you have commitment issues, that's the trend for 2022. Try and dig deep into that, really. Come in with a healthy mindset. Come in with a clear conscience. Don't go back to paths right now that led you to being single in the first place. Don't be drinking. Don't be doing drugs. Don't be an abusive partner. It's not a good trend. It's not a good thing to be doing to yourself in 2022. Get out of the bad habits. Change your lifestyle. Change your health. Live a long life. Because the long-term relationship means till death to us part. So I mean, whether you're married or not, you want to grow old with your partner. You want to stay with this person for the rest of your life, right? If that's the goal. I'm not saying trying to force that down someone's throat on the first date, because that's not healthy either. But if you're looking to settle down, if you're looking to, grow old with that person, then eliminate the bad habits, because that's the best way of doing things. It is. It's a healthier way too. It's a healthier lifestyle. You continue with the same bad habits and not change and not commit, then that partner's going to leave you. People are saying I'm obsessed with podcasting if I listen to music too much and I don't communicate well enough with people. That could be true. That's partially true. Heck, I'm looking for dates for 2022. I'm looking to get back out there. I'm free right now in the bachelor life right now. The bachelor life right now is kind of boring. I'm willing to cut back on some things and communicate better with people. Go out there, start conversations. But I read this article on Bumble, what Bumble is looking for, really. They're looking for people with long-term relationships. They're not looking for random hookups here, really. And, you hear about these online sites that, charge so much, like certain dating sites right now in different states, they charge way too much money. And I think it's like speed dating, really. And it's looking for people right now who are serious, who are willing to basically look for a long-term partner. And I think Bumble here is trying to find that as well. But people will use that right now to advance for one-night stands, where you could easily get that at a bar if you really want to get plastered drunk, or if you're on the prowl right now, not getting drunk, but finding younger girls out there for one-night stands for easy, cheesy pickup lines that you can find on the website. And that's what people are looking for these days. It's just cheesy stuff. They're not looking for long-term relationships with younger people. Older people are. I mean, I will say that the different demographics are looking for that kind of thing. Like, I'd say the demographic between, I would say maybe 42 and, 63 maybe. Is that demographic? Looking for long-term relationships, I think sometimes. But I think the demographic between 25 and probably 35, I would say, is looking for just one-night stands, really. They're not looking for long-term relationships. And honestly, you're better. Some people out there are dating their high school sweetheart right now, you know, and I think they're really that demographic is doing it right, basically, based on the commitment and the communication, long term overall. Nothing's gonna break that couple except, that what if, you know, and they're willing to go through the journey together and actually work on their problems and live a healthier lifestyle and keep changing and to better their relationship. That's great, you know. But for people out there who are in that age demographic, you don't think you're going to find someone, you got to take the chance. Whether it's going through an expensive website that that looks for long-term relationships, or going through Bumble. But seriously, if you're willing to make a change for yourself and a change for your love partners, do it. Have a great healthy mindset. Have a great relationship. Have a great make changes. Communicate more. Be happy. If you're drunk, it's not a good thing. It's not the drinking. Anyway, so I'm going to review now the Georgia Bulldog Alabama Crimson Tide game, because I just realized I didn't even review that game yet. That was the game that was on last night. That was I don't know if it was, based on national championship games, if I had to rate this one from a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say that game was I'd say 7 out of 10. The game started out slow. It started out boring. It was a field goal fest, really. The one key thing in this game was a possession that was late. That was really late in the I think it was either in the third or the fourth. I can't remember what quarter that was in, but it was a blocked field goal by Georgia after Alabama nailed like 3 straight field goals. But really, it was Bennett in this game who was a lot better in this game. 17 for 26, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a big game for him overall. Bryce Young threw the ball nearly 60 times for 369 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. The second pick sealing the pick six from Keely Rangel, who returned at 79 yards. Adonai Mitchell got the touchdown to take the lead in the game for 40 yards out. Brock Bowers got the put away game, really put the game out of reach game, and then the interception that was tipped off here. But Alabama in this game, to start out here, if you had to think about the difference in defense in this game, the key sacks in this game, there were 10 sacks combined by both teams. Bryce Young got sacked 5 times. Bennett got sacked 5 times. But the kid never gave up. That kid had more heart than Young did. And that's what it really came down to in that second half here, really. I mean, it was just more about heart here. They were down as much as 9-3. Zamir White got a 1-yard run. And there's another block. And there was another a long run by White for a first down. White had 13 carries for 84 yards. Brian Robinson Jr. had 22 carries for 68 yards in this game. Pickens was the only big-time wide receiver here that had 1 catch in this game for 52 yards. Latu for Alabama, the tight end, had 5 catches for 102 yards and a touchdown. And a game really where it was really about the running in this game. There were more running plays than passing plays in this game. Zamir White, the junior, got the big carries in this game right now so far this year. Just overall sealing the deal right now for Georgia right now. Georgia in this game annihilated Alabama. They did. They annihilated them in late in the fourth quarter. In fact, if you think about it, really, in that fourth quarter, I mean, they outscored in the second half 27-9. I mean, that's what can you say about that second half here, really, other than Georgia sending a message? It was the Will Richard field goal fest, nailing every field goal if possible. Right now, there was a point where they had a drop touchdown that led to a field goal. That was the missed opportunity by Bryce Young that I wanted to get into. That was where they were down up 6-3. They had a chance to take a 10-point lead. There was a drop pass in the end zone by Latu. All the way around, this game was really all out in Alabama's favor. There was really a lot of people that were losing hope. There were more Georgia Bulldog fans, if you notice, in that stadium than there were Alabama fans. And I think that might be the difference maker in this game. I mean, think about it. It's always an even slate 50-50 for most of these championship games. It's ending really on the favor of Alabama. And I've watched these national championship games. I've watched Alabama fans pack the stadium here. I feel like this year this was a different case of it. It was more Georgia fans this year in Lucas Oil Stadium last night, and it was a difference in crowd factor here. And just the fact that Georgia was so motivated in killing Alabama right now and getting the revenge of the SEC title loss they had back 37 days ago in Athens, Georgia. So, I mean, to me, or, in this case here in the Mercedes-Benz Dome where the Falcons play. So that's again, the story here. They avenged their loss. It was an emotional time. Bennett, who was dealing with, with family issues, his mom, just being in remission from cancer. That was a big relief there. Just a lot of emotion. He was crying last night towards the end of this game. Everybody hugging him. All the fans were, the Kirby Smart was hugging him. His players were hugging him. And that Georgia defense last night, they capitalized on every advantage they could in getting after Bryce Young and pressuring that kid. That kid was, I wouldn't say he wasn't ready for the big time, but he was there. It was just a matter of, Alabama's defense not holding up in the end, and the funny thing is that I said this about most of these Alabama games this year. That defense this year did not play great in most of the games they beat. And I would say the two games that they played well in, that played, as good as they did, go back and watch the LSU game where they barely won that one. And then the game against the Tennessee Volunteers. That's the two best games they played all season. And then maybe the game against the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC title game. Because I didn't think overall Georgia's offense played that great in that game. And they played scared in this game. And it was the exact same thing in that first half. They played too scared in that first half and lingered on in the second half in the SEC title game. In this game here, it was a totally different switch that flipped up for this team. And in the end, it worked out. It worked out in the favor for Georgia. They were able to get the win. Bryce Young, towards the end of the game, wasn't really that overall emotional, but that team will be back. I mean, if no one thinks for one second that Bryce Young will be back next year, this guy, remember, is a Heisman Trophy winner. This guy is a good actually a hell of a quarterback for Alabama. Probably one of the better quarterbacks they've had in years. And first year as a starter, and he gets a Heisman Trophy winner. He leads that team to a national championship game. I mean, and to do that by yourself, really with a lackluster defense. That defense is not that great. They're not that great. All in all, they played terrible defense in this game. They were pretty bad in this game in the second half, especially in the second half. You're allowing 27 points in the second half here, in a game that you probably should have won. Now, possibly the 49-yard field goal before the end of the half, that's no excuse. You should be able to beat this team. If you're Alabama, their offense is not that much better. Bryce Young throwing for 350 yards, 360 yards in that game. That's pretty bad. That's pretty badass. You'd probably think right now it's 33-26 then. You had nailed a pick six here. No, it was 33-18. It's like, really? Will Anderson Senior and Bryce Young at the podium, they were, just in the loss for words really at the podium. And really Nick Saban complimented them on their season, hyping them up for next season, and these guys are the future of Alabama football. And not taking anything away from Alabama in this game, but that was a great compliment from Nick Saban last night at the podium towards the end of that game. And Keely Rango, who got the pick six off of Bryce Young, and the Young threw an interception the first time around, which the first interception they threw didn't lead to anything. It led to a 3-and-out and a punt here, really. The whole change in momentum here for Alabama, like I didn't think the touchdown drive after they recovered the so-called fumble, which I thought was a fumble anyway, but it was still a Georgia Bulldog football anyway. And it wasn't intentional grounding because the ball was already out of the hands. I thought it was a fumble. It rolled out of bounds. It was still going to be Georgia's ball. They called it for Alabama ball. I don't know why. The guy recovered it out of bounds. I forgot what his name was. It wasn't Turner. It was somebody else. I forgot what his name was that recovered the fumble. But I watched that replay over and over and over again. And the first thing that popped in my head was that this referee was paid out to give that ball to Alabama. The NCAA probably want Alabama to make this game interesting here and give Alabama the win. But Georgia just said, screw that. Kirby Smart said, I'm not losing to this Nick Saban fella again after being owned by him a bunch of times, And this is a guy who started out in his time. He was coaching. He was with them in his times in LSU, is with the times of the Miami Dolphins, part of the Alabama Crimson Tide staff. And now here again and meeting up again 4 years later in a national title game. And this time your team gets the victory in a game where I think Georgia should have won that other game. Because 2 in Alabama got lucky in that game. This time around, they weren't so lucky with Bryce Young. And I think Alabama's defense had much to do with that the loss here. I thought they played overall a terrible second half. I thought the offense overall played a terrible rush game from Brian Robinson Jr. Robinson Jr. 68 yards on 22 carries. You can't run against this defense. That's scary. And I figured with the amount of holes that he got in the game, you think he'd have like over 100 yards and maybe like around 200 yards rushing. Nope, was not the case there. As Alabama got the win on, or I'm sorry, not Alabama getting the win. Sorry, Georgia getting the win. I'm so used to Alabama winning at this point that even though when they lose, I still can call them the winner. But I know Georgia Bulldogs get the win last night, 33-18. Huge win for Georgia as they're, for the first time in 41 years, national champions. And it's a great feeling to have if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. I'm not even a Georgia Bulldog fan, and I'm happy about this team. I just hate Alabama more. I really do. In fact, I might just be a Georgia Bulldog fan just for the hell of it, So I think that was I thought that was cool with what happened in that game last night, and just a moment that Bennett had. That guy was an emotional wreck, and he was beyond full of emotion in this one. He got the national title trophy in the playoff, and really in a game where the two games that they won. And think about this for a minute. Combine the points. They outscored their opponents 77-29 in their last two games here in the college football playoff. They beat Michigan 34-11, and they beat Georgia. I'm sorry, they beat Alabama 33-18. It's just it's unbelievable of how good Georgia was defensively throughout this entire college football playoff. It's seriously amazing. It really is. So, in the end, Georgia Bulldogs overall better, a good football team. The question is now is Bennett going to go in the draft? And I think this will be it for him. He finished out the year with 29 touchdowns, 7 picks. Basically, he finished out the entire playoff run, not counting those regular season games here. Really, in the end, here really he threw for 35 touchdowns and 9 interceptions towards the season. The regular season was 29-7, but when you impact the playoff run this kid had and of how much better he's been, and now the question is he what is he worth in the draft? Is he a 3rd round pick? Is he a 4th round pick? In my honest opinion, he's a 3rd round pick. That win he had last night in his run in the college football playoff, it was a great run. It really was. He completely turned that team's season completely around. They were a great story here. He threw for 313 yards against a tough Michigan Wolverine team. He threw for 225 against Alabama. I mean, that right there in of itself, he's worth a 3rd round pick. He's worth a look. Some people say he's worth a 5th or 6th rounder here. I think he was at that before that national title game last night. And if they would have lost last night, he'd be at that same worth right now. But, in this case here, he's not he's a 3rd round pick, maybe a 4th round pick at best, maybe 3rd or 4th. This kid's got something. Threw for 2,800 yards this past season. This kid's worth something. He's worth a look. Anyway, so before I sign off, I'm going to actually get into this news article today I just found today on Jerome Bettis. This is according to some Newsbreak reports that I get on my phone. I get breaking news daily on my phone, whether it's COVID news or it's other stuff like this. Jerome Bettis, who was a legendary Pittsburgh Steelers icon, a legend in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in his days in Notre Dame as a running back right now, never finished his days in college. News broke out today that he told his entire family and his kids that he will finish his last semester at Notre Dame this upcoming, I don't know if it's upcoming spring or the fall, but he will be attending Notre Dame College and getting his degree. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, he said. But in this case here, it's awesome to hear. You hear stories like this, it makes you wonder, like, wow, I didn't think Jerome Bettis wasn't a college graduate. Because the guy sounds educated when he does like podcasting, when he does like analytics and stuff like that. You think this guy would be a genius, but going to Notre Dame. But turns out he never finished because he was drafted so soon and he never really got to finish in college. And really, he's a Super Bowl champion, future Hall of might as well be in the Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer at this point, and he's a big name. So The question is now is Jerome Bettis, is this a good story? Is it a good thing to hear? I think it is. Jerome Bettis going back to college, it's a hell of a story. Again, it just, you hear stuff like this and it's an awesome story, and the fact that now that he's going back now to finish it to get his degree, good for him. Good for him. I think it's an awesome story. The bus going back to Notre Dame, and I was wrong. He is in the Hall of Fame. He was a part of the 2015 class. I was looking to see whether or not he was a Hall of Famer. I couldn't remember if he was inducted already or not, but he is in the NFL Hall of Fame, and well deserved, by the way. Back in 2015, 7 years ago, really. But yeah. So Jerome Bettis in the Hall of Fame, 2015. 7 years later, will be getting his degree at Notre Dame. So good for him. It's a good story. He'll be part of the class of 2022. So that is actually, I think we got any other things to bring it up right now? Anything commencing right now? I probably should get in the more news story now, as there going to be some possible talks right now in Major League Baseball with the lockout. Some bargaining agreements right now. There'll be some talks going on for the first time since the lockout started. And I want to get into the story before I get off the air here with this, because last week Ken Rosenthal, writer for The Athletic, writer for Fox Sports for baseball, and was originally a reporter for the Major League Baseball Network, was fired. And I didn't get into this last week. I didn't get a chance to get into this rant, but here it is. He got into a criticism about Rob Manfred's way of putting together the 2020 baseball season during the pandemic. And apparently, and I'm convinced by this, that Manfred got that report back from somebody. He wanted this guy removed from the baseball network because he doesn't like the fact that people talk about him negatively. Roger Goodell, who gets constant criticism every week, never fires any writers, never fires anybody. And that's probably the only good thing I could say about Roger Goodell, because everything else is complete horseshit what he does. But Rob Manfred, a commissioner for this league right now, can't handle a criticism. And really, the stuff he said about the baseball season was 100% accurate. How it was put together, how they had no fans there, how they had the holographic stuff. And then a World Series that wasn't even played in their own ballpark, was played in Texas. By the way, by that point, most states actually wanted to see the World Series. In fact, they didn't even mind seeing it if they were in Los Angeles. And they allowed some fans there. But Texas had the doors wide open. They paid Manfred out so much money. And it turned out that Manfred was plastered drunk at the game. What a surprise, right? But apparently they fired him over the criticism about what Manfred had said. I thought that was pathetic. I thought it was a pathetic way to let go a great writer in Ken Rosenthal. And he didn't even write this on the Baseball Network script. He wrote this for The Athletic, which begs the question at this point. So if Buster only want to write about this, would he get fired? No. But I think Ken Rosenthal was never really, because I've heard stories saying that Ken Rosenthal always got underneath the skin of Rob Manfred about reporting and stuff like that, questioning stuff right now about the cheating scandal. And I think, honestly, this pandemic thing was the final straw. But I don't think it's enough to fire the guy off the network. I think that was completely stupid, because you're firing a guy who has no business of being fired in the first place. I know this happened last week. I know this is a way overdue story. I never got a chance to upload a video and talk about this rant, in person. In this case here, I have to here because I just think to myself, it's completely wild of how ridiculously dumb this story is. And the fact that Rob Manfred fired this guy because of one little criticism about the pandemic, which he has every right to talk about in his own thing in The Athletic. So why is it that he's getting fired for this? Because you can't say one bad thing about Rob Manfred. Cora must have said it at the time they're in the cheating stuff right now, saying that he was denying the whole thing. How it was all collusion to get the other guy fired. And Cora got called off for that and got let go from the Astros. Because it wasn't the fact that Cora left the Astros high and dry and he bailed him out and the owner wanted him gone. Manfred basically forced the owner to remove the guy and manage the Boston Red Sox and try to dethrone John Henry. Because There's stories about Henry and Manfred not getting along. There's a lot of things going on right now in this whole thing. A lot of conspiracy theories, and that's the thing with baseball itself. There's a lot of conspiracy theories in the world of baseball. There always has been, and there always will be. That's never going to change. Baseball is a corrupt sport when it comes to the Hall of Fame. It's a corrupt thing when it comes to favoritism, when it comes to reporters, and how they dictate the Hall of Fame status. By the way, Jeff Kent this year was voted in by Shaughnessy, Dan Shaughnessy, one of the Boston sports writers. I just think that's pathetic that they voted for Jeff Kent over David Ortiz. I just think the whole thing is nonsense. I think Dan Shaughnessy's a joke. I think the whole baseball report thing, the decorum, is a joke. There's not NFL writers out there that dictate whether or not this person gets in the Hall of Fame or not. It's by the Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame head honcho and David Baker, who dictates on the seasons or not. It's not NFL writers. It's the players that vote these people in. It's fans that vote these things in. It's all dictated by the fans. Baseball is dictated not even by fans, really, but by baseball writers. And here you got a baseball writer who happened to get fired from a baseball network because of criticism that took place almost over 2 years ago. Because you can't say one bad thing about Rob Manfred. You can't. Because God forbid if you do. And there are people, and there are fans that will call these people out. That will call Manfred out for his behavior. There are owners that will call this guy out for bad behaviors. But if a baseball writer does it for his own paper, a different job that's not even associated with the baseball network, that's a negative. Like anything was even said positive about the Athletic from Rob Manfred's side of it. But give me a break. The guy handled the whole cheating scandal thing completely wrong. He was paid off by the owner for the Houston Astros. There was never any proof for cheating in the Boston Red Sox side of things. People were saying that there was signs of proof. I think it's bullshit. And even before the cheating scandal with the Astros, people have always been saying Boston sports have been full of cheaters with the Patriots. Look, who cares, right? You ain't cheating, you ain't trying, right? That's always my attitude when it comes to this. But the Red Sox were never part of it. The Celtics were never really a part of it, really, if ever, really. But the Red Sox did it with Alex Cora, who just happens to come from a team that had that basically covered up a cheating scandal for 2 years because Cora's henchmen, not even Cora himself, his henchmen decide to do their own thing. I just think it's pathetic that Rob Manfred is criticized for how he handled the whole pandemic, and I think it was on the pandemic. I don't even remember the stories on the pandemic or how he handled the whole non-suspension for the owner for baseball, for the owner for the Astros, for not suspending him for that entire season, or really for suspending and firing their player. I mean, the manager. I just think it's weird. Like Dusty Baker should not be managing this Houston Astros team, but he ends up with a job anyway. Ken Rosenthal right now should not have been fired from the baseball MLB network, and Dan Shaughnessy should never vote Jeff Kent over David Ortiz for the Hall of Fame status, which means now I guess Ortiz needed a boost right now to get in right now. He's not in the ballot for 2022. That's disappointing. I lean to these things because there comes to certain people right now that are so biased, it's pathetic when it comes to baseball writing. Ken Rosenthal is not one of those writers. He's unbiased. He's unfiltered. He can say whatever the hell he wants to freaking say. And if Rob Manfred don't like it, too bad. I think for the last 5 seasons in baseball, when it comes to him as a commissioner, ever since he was named a commissioner back in 2016 over Selick, I think he's been pathetic. I think he's been absolutely pathetic. I think he's one of these guys who gets the job, who always only in it for the money. He doesn't really care about the sport and making it better. I just feel like that this guy can do and say whatever he wants to do. He can dictate of who keeps a job and who doesn't. I'm surprised that Ken Rosenthal didn't sue the MLB network just for this firing alone, because it had nothing. Because right there, that's a lawsuit right there for Rob Manfred right there. Defamation of character, and basically, I think he called out. I don't think there's anything wrong with what Rosenthal even said in the article, but just the idea of Rosenthal not even suing this guy and getting the job back in the MLB network, and really, if you think about it right now, could be asking the removal for Rob Manfred altogether. It's just mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Anyway, so that's all the time we have today right now. Subscribe to the show if you can on YouTube. It's Let's Interrupt You. If the channel name is Joe and Mike, is the name of the channel. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. You know the drills right now. If you want to email us any questions, if you want to email us at all, you can reach me on joealvo@bostonsports@gmail.com. Doesn't matter if it's capitalized or not. And also for my buddy, my co-host Michael Smith, his email is mjsmitty97@gmail.com. You can follow him on Instagram and Facebook as well. It is mjsmitty97. It is not Senator's. I forgot what his name was. Senator Mike. I think it's what his profile name was on Instagram. That got hacked. So if anyone's trying to follow him on that, he does not use that anymore. Don't. You'll get hacked on Instagram. So I will have a review on my predictions on Thursday. I might have some more stuff on the NFL. I might cover some more news on the COVID, especially on the Omicron at this point. How it's more coverage on that. I was going to get into more coverage on what was said today during the with Senator the senator from Kentucky and Fauci, but I'm not going to get into that. Although I will get into that because I thought it was entertaining on Thursday. I might get into some of that. I might review AEW Dynamite. I might not. I probably won't because I haven't reviewed a lot of Dynamite for a while. Probably won't even do a lot of pro wrestling this week if I'm going to be honest. So let me see. The Thursday slate's the NFL playoffs. My picks there. I might get into some college basketball stuff, some NBA stuff. Probably not a lot of sport. Probably not even a lot of sports this week. Probably will get into education this week and some business stuff, maybe. I don't know. So be well, stay safe, and have a nice couple of days off. I will be back here on Thursday. There will be no show on Saturday. The normal time slot will be Tuesday and Saturday the next week. So have a great day, guys. Peace out.